you might want, okay, and you might want to mute yourselves if there's noise in the house. And I want to thank Elizabeth Hale. She's not here today, but she's our executive director of the Bethesda Metro Area Village and a great colleague. So I have written a background paper, which I hope all of you have received and had a chance to read or glance over. If you've not received that background paper, please let me or Mary Jo know, and we'll send it to you. Just wave your hand at me if you don't know what I'm talking about. If you've not seen this background paper and you don't know what I'm referring to. Okay, so there's Bob Hoff. Anybody else? And Danny Wilson. So
it would be best if they could put it into the chat, perhaps. Okay,
so go in the chat. You know how to do that? Just go down to, put your cursor down on the bottom and click on chat. I'm doing it. I've got my chat box open now, and put in there that you've not received this background paper, and Mary Jo will send it to you. I've got the chat box open so that you can, yeah, good, well done, Fran. Right, well, excellent. This is working well. And you can also put questions and comments there if you want. I'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, so now, I've written this background paper, which I hope some of you at least have had a chance to read. Oh, wait a minute, Mary Jo, I forgot to introduce myself. Yes, Mary Jo, introduce yourself. That is so important. Please go ahead.
No, it's in the chat. So now you know I'm the president of WAVE, and that's why you're seeing me. And I will take credit for getting Chris here, because I was very much looking forward to hearing from him.
Wonderful, thank you, Mary Jo. So yeah, okay, so just to repeat, if you've not received or the background paper, we will send it to you. So Mary Jo, will you take care of those people who've written requesting it?
I do ask people, because if they got the Zoom link, they got your document.
It was attached
on that email. So yeah. I am happy for those of you who say you don't have it, but it was sent. And those of you who got the email twice, you've gotten it twice. So you just really need to read that email. But I'm taking your names.
Okay, thank you, Mary Jo. All right, so our topic today is how to start and nurture a group in your village focused on aging, death, and dying. That's what we're going to focus on today. The background paper that I wrote addresses this question, I want to open this up very quickly to questions and comments from all of you. But before we do that, let me just make three points. First point, the meetings we had of our aging, dying, and death group either involved an outside speaker, or they were a discussion led by me or one of our members, or thirdly, we focused on a deep question. Now, I can elaborate on those different options in the discussion if you'd like me to. So I just want to give you that sort of quick idea of what we actually did. The second point I want to make is that death and dying, as we all know, are taboo topics. People fear death and dying, and for the most part would rather not dwell on them. We first called our group in the Bethesda Metro Village, we first called our group Aging, Death, and Dying. But this name, because of the words death and dying in it,
I don't know. I have my...
Would somebody mute, please?
So this name, Aging, Death, and Dying, triggered lots of debate, and we eventually renamed it the Aging Well SIG, Aging Well Special Interest Group, because we were concerned that potential new members, people who didn't know anything about us, might be turned off and even repulsed by seeing the words death and dying on our website or in our literature. We didn't change our mission. We didn't change the mission of the death and dying group, but we simply changed our name to Aging Well. And we've actually found that while death and dying are taboo topics for many, there are a significant number of village members who are pleased to break that taboo. They want to talk about it. They want to learn about it. And they are grateful for the opportunity to ponder and study it. And then the third point I want to make is that, and the final point is that death and dying is, at least to me, an endlessly fascinating and broad subject. It includes advanced directives, dementia, aging successfully, decluttering, death cleaning, hospice care, palliative care, death doulas, retirement, green burials, ethical wills, legacy letters, writing memoirs, avoiding over-medicalization, defining a good death, the right to die, wise funeral planning, and many other compelling topics. So I just wanted to share that how broad it is. Now, I have more to say, but I want to pause at this point, and I want to welcome questions and comments. Now, you can do this a number of ways. You can wave at me like that, wave and get my attention, and that's one way to do it. Another way is to go to the bottom of the screen where it says reactions, and you can see raise your hand. And so I've just done that. You see, I've just done that. So I'm going to lower I've just lowered my hand. So that's another way to do it. Go to that at the bottom of the page where it says reactions. And then another way to do it is in the chat room. You may just want to write a question in the chat room. And I'm keeping my chat room open, chat room. Is that the name? Room, chat box. And I'm keeping mine open so I can see if anybody has a question. And so those are three ways to get my attention. So let me just, oh, good. Okay, so Cheryl has a question. Let me just see, does anybody, so Cheryl, I'll come to you. Does anybody else have a question? We have a second page now. So we've got 35 people signed up. We have the same. So I wonder if Dave Prescott and Mary Jo, if you could occasionally look at the second page to see if I'm missing anybody. And by the way, there's a question here. I'm going to come to you, Cheryl, but there's a question here. How's it different from a death cafe? So I will answer that in a minute. And so Cheryl Wasserman, you have a question. Go ahead. You are muted, Cheryl.
I will repeat. Hello, Chris. Nice to see you. Thank you for doing this.
You're so welcome.
I'm wondering if you record at least the presentations, if not the Q&A, and have those recordings available on demand.
We don't. We haven't over the last 5 years. We haven't done that once, I think. I think I gave a talk on ethical wills and legacy letters, and I think we might have recorded that. But typically we don't. I don't know why we don't. We just haven't thought about that. But it is a good idea, and we should think about it, Cheryl. Thanks for raising that point, because people sometimes can't get to the meetings, but want to hear what was said. So thank you, Cheryl. Do you have another question, a follow-up question?
Well, do you preserve a library of materials that have been developed or handed out at the various sessions?
Yes, we sort of do, because after every meeting, I summarize the key points and send out to everybody in the village. And that can sometimes be a long document. It's usually always at least a couple of pages, quite detailed. So if somebody has missed the meeting, they actually can get the sort of 95% or even more of the meeting from my notes after the meeting. I sometimes worry this has a downside in that people think, oh, Chris is going to send me a summary, I don't need to go to the meeting. So that may be a bit of a downside, but yes, it is a good idea to preserve, because when important things are said, it's important to get them in writing. That's why I wrote the background paper for this meeting, because without that background paper, it would the substance of what I'm saying would very quickly FNS and be fugacious and fleeting and ephemeral, and it would be gone. But the background paper captures it forever. So again, Cheryl, thank you. Yes, I try to keep a record of what is said, because what's said in the meetings is important and is worth capturing. Thank you,
I have a
Cheryl.
third question, if I
Yes,
may.
please go ahead.
I noticed that you charge for membership and access to this group. And I know one of the purposes is to build community, but that gets to the question of sharing with adjacent communities and where you draw the boundary. And obviously you can't share very well if membership costs money.
Okay, it's a good question. The premise of your question is puzzling me, because we don't charge for any meetings. Perhaps you're talking about the membership to join a village?
Yes.
So we often make our meetings open to the public, no charge. It is true that to join Bethesda Metro Area Village and other villages, typically you pay a fee for all the benefits. You pay a membership fee, but if there's a particular meeting going on, particularly if my group agent was having a meeting and someone writes us, can they join? I always let them in. Everybody is welcome to come. Does that answer your question, Cheryl? Great. Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for those 3 good questions. Let me go now to, oh, look at these questions. I am so thrilled. Oh my gosh, look at this. So we'll go to Margie next. Margie Ogle, you are on. You're muted. Okay, Margie.
Thank you. I'm from East Rock Creek Village in the district.
Yeah.
So I wondered how big are, number one, how big are the meetings? I have about 4 questions. So the group.
Okay, so let me answer that one. Let me answer that one first. We typically have 20 to 40 people who come. Our total membership in the village is 120 at the moment. And of that, 20 to 40 people come to my Aging Well monthly meetings. Does that answer that first of 4 questions?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So it would seem like we need you to be at each of the meetings. That is, I can't imagine this working very well without a really skilled facilitator. Do you agree with that?
Well, you're asking me to be immodest, and I think a skilled facilitating is important. But let me tell you some things that I do, Margie, which anybody could replicate, and these are actually in the background paper on the first page. So one thing I do, it takes about 3 or 4 hours, but I write individually to every member of our village, encouraging them to come. That's a lot of work, but I write, dear Fred, and then the next email, dear Susan, I hope you'll come on Sunday at 4 o'clock, blah, blah, blah. And, so that individual attention is I think helps to build the community and helps people to come. The other thing that my wife Gail and I do is we serve hot cider and wine and small eats and cheese and crackers and things like that, so that when people come, it's like a party. I mean, people are drinking and they're chatting. It's fun. So that's the other thing we do to try and make the event a social event and a fun atmosphere. And then the other thing I do and this can be replicated by others, to build community spirit, I send out a weekly, now it's become monthly, but I used to do a weekly email to all our members with quotes about aging, with comments from me about aging and dying, and some humorous cartoons. And if any of you would like to see that, just let me know and I'll send it to you. My email, by the way, is christopher.n.palmer. You'll see this at the top of the background paper, christopher.n.palmer@gmail.com. Just send me a note. Just send me send me your e-newsletter and I'll send you a copy of it. But this again builds community spirit, which is, by the way, I should say, Margie, excuse me interrupting your 4 questions, but let me just make this point. One of the benefits of the death and dying group that I run is not only because it breaks the taboo and gets people talking about these issues, but it also builds tremendous community spirit. When people share the poignant death of their mother in detail and what they did to make it a good death, it really brings people together. So I think the death and dying group not only is useful because it deals with an important topic, but it also helps bring people together in our village, which is the point of the village. So I think it helps to achieve the aims of the village. Let me go back to you, Margie. So you had I answered your first question about number of people. Then you had a second question about, do you need me to be a skillful? No, you need someone who's able to be a good facilitator. So this means warmly welcoming people. This means make sure everybody has a chance to talk. This means drawing out people who may be shy or wallflowers, things like that. So those are typical skills of a good facilitator. But the good facilitators.
Sorry, but I don't see how this can work unless somebody actually has some expertise in the meat of it.
Oh, no, that's not true, because I bring in outside speakers all the time with expert out. Now, it's true,
Okay.
I have some expertise, so I do run some of the meetings myself. But if you were in your village, if you would have found a death and dying group, you wouldn't have to have expertise yourself. You would need to have, I think, curiosity about the subject, but you can bring in outside speakers, because
And where do you find the outside speakers?
Oh my gosh, all over the place. I don't know if Dan Morhaime is in this meeting yet. Dan, I mean, Dan.
Yes, I'm here listening. Thank you.
Oh, hi,
Thank you,
oh,
Chris.
Dan. Hi,
I'm over there
Dan.
someplace.
Great
Yeah.
to see you. I mean, Dan is an amazing guy. He could give a talk to your village. I mean, he's a former. He's an ER doctor who did that for about 40 years, and he was a Maryland legislator. Some of you may know of him. He's a Maryland legislator who legislated in this area of death and dying. He's written a book. He's written this wonderful book. I'm reading it right now. This wonderful book. Do you see the title there? Preparing for a Better End. It's an outstanding book. I'm really enjoying it. And so I mean, Dan is somebody who could talk to your village, but there are many other people, and I can give you lots of names of people who can give talks to your.
And Chris, could we ask Dan to put his name and contact information into the chat?
Please do. Yeah, please do. Dan, would you do that? Would you be kind enough, please, to put your name and contact
Of
information?
course.
Thank
Happy
you,
to
Dan.
do it. I'll give you my direct email address, and I answer them all myself. And the link to the book, which comes from Johns Hopkins Press, was endorsed by such people as Maya Angelou, Ben Cardin, Chris Van Hollen, Leanna Wen, and others. And thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to speak to any group anytime. I do that a lot and have.
Yeah.
I think it's such a good
topic.
topic, and I like that we're all meeting on this taboo topic. And by the way, it wasn't easy. I got elected 6 times, Maryland House of Delegates, 24 years. It wasn't easy saying, I want to talk about death and dying, and don't forget to vote for me in the next election, So, but they did. So it all worked out.
Wonder, yeah. Dan's an amazing guy, an amazingly accomplished guy. So invite him to talk. But there are many other people. And if you write to me offline, I can give you many names of people who can give talks about death cleaning and palliative care and green burial and many, many other subjects,
That's perfect, and I will do that. In terms of the structure, the meeting, I have ongoing meetings. So are most of them structured that you have maybe a time for stories, time for a little socializing, and then a time for stories, and then a time for a particular topic with an expert?
Yes, well, okay, so it's good at this point to distinguish Zoom meetings from in-person meetings. And in-person meetings at my house, they're always on Sunday at 4 o'clock. People arrive early, come into the house, take their shoes off, come into the house, get a drink, chat, and then after chatting, I start the meeting usually with a story or two, and welcoming people and all sorts of warm ways to warming the room and making people feel relaxed and at home. Now in the Zoom meetings, and then afterwards they stay and have a drink and we have a party. But at the Zoom meetings, it's a little bit different, and there I start the meetings by welcoming everybody, especially looking out for new people who haven't ever come before, and giving them a very warm welcome and introducing them to the group. And then usually it's fairly structured. I mean, it depends on the type of meeting. If we have an outside speaker, I introduce the speaker and the speaker talks, and we have Q&As and blah, blah, blah. If I'm giving a talk and running the meeting, it tends to be very interactive. So I pause every 5 minutes for questions and comments and stories and so on. Am I answering your question, Margie? Margie, you're muted.
Yes, I know, because my cat is meowing. Yes, you're answering my question. So I'm trying to think about how, without an expert in the village, how we could begin to structure such a program, which I find, I'm right with you. I think this is really important.
Okay, so let me repeat, you don't need an expert in the village. You need somebody who is enthusiastic and curious about the subject, and somebody who wants to learn about it, like your cat. That's it. Why is your cat mewing? Because he wants to get involved in death and dying.
No, she wants a treat.
Okay, Margie, do you have any other questions?
That's it for now. I'll raise my
Okay.
hand again. if
Yeah,
I-
raise it, come back as often as you want. Let's go to Bob, and then we'll go to Lisa Friedman. Bob Hoff, go ahead, please, Bob.
Yes, I'm a member of the Mount Pleasant Village in DC. We have about 200 members, and we're at the cusp of forming one of these groups.
Okay, wonderful.
I have participated myself in many of these groups and death cafes and legacy workshops and other kinds of death and dying forum. I notice you flip back and forth from calling it death and dying to aging well. You can't seem to stop yourself from going back and forth on that terminology, which I can understand. Although I think, to be honest with you, aging well to me is too generic a term and doesn't really cover the focus of what you're getting to.
Yeah.
Even if death and dying is too traumatic, I think something that gives people a heads up of where they're going and not about housing, et cetera.
Well, I'm with Bob. I'm with you completely. And I don't know if you heard what I said at the beginning, but we originally called it aging, dying, and death. But there was controversy because people on our board worried that the words dying and death would be a turnoff for new members. And so they, against my better judgment, they persuaded me to rename it Aging Well. It didn't change our mission. We still do death and dying issues, but we call it Aging Well. I changed it to Aging Well out of deference to the people on our board who worried that the new members would be repulsed by the words death and dying. I know it's crazy. I can't justify this, but
It's okay. Let me make my question to you.
please do.
First of all, people who are asking about expertise, it really depends on the kind of group you're running. I've been in groups where there's no expert at all and just a small facilitator, but basically people really run the group themselves and talk about topics about death and dying that are relevant to them, and it's a good conversation. I've also been to groups where there is the facilitator is the formal expert, or I've been to groups where they bring in an outside expert. So you can do it any number of different ways.
Absolutely, because if you've got a member talking about the death of their mother or the death of their brother, then you don't need an expert. I mean, that's just a personal thing. But if you're talking about green burial or a death doula, then you might want to have an outside expert, somebody who has a little knowledge about it. But Bob, your point's well taken.
So let me ask you this. Do you ever do in your groups small group discussions, small group breakouts?
No, we haven't done that, but we've thought about it. I think it's a good idea. I think it works well. I think but we have never done it. But no reason. I mean, I endorse the idea of it. I think it's a good idea. It requires a little more planning than, say, a meeting like this. We're not doing that in this meeting, and for good reason, because you all have questions and you all want to hear each other's questions and hear my answers and responses to them. But having breakout sessions is a good idea, Bob. Do you have another question?
No, I'm lowering my hand, and thank you for using the word fugacious, which I've never heard before. But now I've looked it up, and I'm going to use it and not give you any credit.
Fugacious means fleeting or ephemeral, or evanescent. A beautiful word. Yeah,
I've learned it. Thanks so much. I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, not at all. Well, great to have you with us. And I see now Lisa is next. And I want to, Lisa's a friend of mine, and Lisa, I know you give wellness talks by Zoom and with your company. And since people are interested in speakers, would you, Lisa, be good enough to put in the chat box after you've asked your question, when you have a moment, would you please put your contact information? Oh yes, okay, you've already put one there. You say, hello everyone, Synergy Home Care provides talk. Oh, okay, good, you've done it. Provides talks on various health topics, including death and dying. Lisa Freeman in with your phone number. Wonderful. Thank you, Lisa. Go ahead with your question.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to just say, I think Chris's topic and his passion, to echo what everyone else has been saying in the chat, is phenomenal. And he comes from different aspects to help people, right? Further educate them. So I'm very grateful that you invited me into your talk today. And yes, Synergy Home Care does provide wellness talks to many of the villages on different topics. And this is a topic where we've had professionals come from the position of bringing together the adult children, being in the senior care space. We find that it's really helpful to the family members of, say, someone that's transitioning or, really aging more quickly than they thought, and for how they can deal with it as being family members and having that hard conversation with the folk that need the help inside the family unit. And so, we're more than happy to help with providing additional support to other groups that you might have relationships with that could use further support with individual family members.
Right. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, let me now go to Lisa. You didn't have no question, right?
No.
Got you. Good. Mary Jo, our leader today, has a question. Mary Jo, please go right ahead.
Well, yes. Thank you very much. And I'll take down my hand. Well, Chris, I said this to you over the phone, but I wanted to raise it again for other people, in that you have clearly done a wonderful job of building a strong sense of community in a group over years. You've been going several years now. My question to you was, and I think this is critical, is obviously there's a certain dynamic that builds up. And over the 4 years, you have talked about these topics before. You may have already talked about the Greenberry. You've already done this. For the group who's already in it, they've already checked the box, perhaps. I'm wondering about the dynamic about bringing new people in who may want to go back to point A or something like that. How do you accommodate people who don't have the background that a wonderful group has accumulated?
Well, you know something, Mary Jo, first of all, thank you for the good question. But the answer is you can never talk about these subjects too much. In other words, we come back to hospice care over and over again, because every time we do it from a slightly different angle, and people need to hear things more than once. Oh my gosh. I mean, I need to hear something 20 times before I remember it once, and so people, it's great to go back over and over again to revisit old subjects, old topics, and hear them again. If it's the same information, it usually isn't, because these subjects are changing all the time. I mean, the right to die issues are changing all the time. So when we have new people who come in and want to go back to things we talked about 5 years ago, that's fine. And I'm going to do that anyway, because these subjects need to be revisited over and over again. Mary Jo, am I answering your question, or am I missing the point?
No, you did answer it, and I'm glad you asked me, because I thought of another quick question, and I'm going to use that prerogative to quickly ask it, because you just touched on it. Yes, the legal framework is changing, and Montgomery County, for example, came very close, not in this most recent session, but in a prior session, to passing a medical aid in dying and other end of life issue policies on those issues.
Yeah, you said Montgomery County, but I think you meant Maryland. That's fine.
Montgomery County, Maryland. And I'm wondering, in your group, do you ever get into advocacy discussions, or do you ever find people who ask if they should be encouraged to become active in advocating for some of these issues?
Well, this is a very good question, because one has to be incredibly sensitive. There are Catholics in our group who are opposed to the right to die, and they're good friends of mine, I want to protect their right to believe what they want to believe. At the same time, I myself am an advocate of the right to die. I'm an advocate of medical aid in dying. I'm an advocate of terminal palliative care and so on. And I'm an advocate of voluntary stopping eating and drinking, VSED. But one has to be very careful here not to drum things into people who are not ready for them. So my job as the facilitator is very different from my job as an advocate. I'm writing a book now on death and dying, which will advocate certain positions, but I don't bring those to the meetings. My job in the meetings is to bring people out, give other people a chance to talk, ask them questions, ask them what they think, and draw out and clarify and bring luminosity to these issues, bring clarity, lucidness to these issues. So it's a good question, Mary Jo. So if people want to get into advocacy, I encourage it, but I don't want anyone ever to feel bullied or intimidated by any meeting that I'm running.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then we come to Cheryl. Cheryl, go ahead, please.
Okay. Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Boy, I can talk about a lot of these subjects. The one thing I've come across recently is I represent the village in Howard County, Maryland.
Yeah. Great.
And we had a chat last year about digital afterlife.
Yeah.
And so many people are online and on
Yeah.
Websites all over God's creation.
Yeah.
I think there's even a clause you can put in your will designating your executor or someone who acts like your executor to do that.
Right.
So I was wondering if I didn't see anything in here mentioning that.
No, but that's a very good topic. What do you do with your social media sites after you die? It's a very good topic. I am not an expert on it, but it is something that we all need to think about and deal with. But in the meantime, while we're alive, I want to recommend digital minimalism and spending little time on social media as possible.
Right.
But that's just my personal opinion. Now, by the way, I'm going to get, I want to look, I'm going to keep an eye on the time. It's 1:36. I'm going to go to Dan next, but it's 1:36. So we have about 24 minutes left. And I want to make sure everybody has a chance to ask questions or make comments. So if you have a comment or question, please press the raise your hand or press the go to the bottom of the screen where it says reactions and press the raise hand button if you want, or just wave at me and I'll see you. And I will go through all the questions in the chat box in a moment to make sure we haven't missed any questions there. So you can keep adding questions onto that. And let me now go to Dan. Dan, a question, please.
Thank you. So a couple of quick points. Really appreciate this. Yes, the topic keeps changing. Maryland legislature, which I was in for 24 years, I'm from Baltimore County, by the way, did pass legislation this last session that facilitates the electronic use of advanced directives, both the completion and the sharing. Because as a clinician in my life as an ER doctor, it's not just that you filled it out, it's that I can actually get my hands on the thing.
That's a great
and then we clinicians need to learn to honor them. But another role all of us can play, in continuing these discussions is sharing it with others. And it's not just for old people. The three most famous cases in American medical legal history are women under 30. When my kids turned 18, my wife and I gave them advanced directives to complete. And as an ER doctor with young people, often get in trouble catastrophically and haven't thought about these issues, whereas older people tend to get a bad diagnosis. And you've thought about it, especially for those of us where the path ahead is shorter than the path behind. We know that, so we're planning. But everybody should do this. The rate of completion of advanced directives across the population in Maryland and throughout the United States is about 40%, and it's about half that in the minority population.
Right.
So whatever we learn here, and it's always going to be changing and there's new things, it's our job. Have we brought this up to our adult children? Meaning over the age of 18, have we brought this up to friends and neighbors? There is a town in La Crosse, Wisconsin. They made the decision that be the town that had the conversation, and they raised the rate of completion, bringing together their business, legal, faith, hospital community, medical community, and just a bunch of advocates. And they have a 98% rate of completion of advanced directives. So two things happened. One, people, because they were all seeing each other as mortal, they became more sensitive of the value of life. You know, we don't dwell on death, and I certainly, even when I write books on the subject, don't dwell on it. I try to live my life, you know, but thinking about it makes me value things. The other thing, they reduced their healthcare costs by about a third.
Amazing.
Because people weren't dying in intensive care units. So there's a lot of things still to be done. Now, my editorial comment on assisted dying, I never had the opportunity to vote on that when I was in the legislature, but I did, was on the committee that was hearing the bills. And both sides were very passionate and sincere in their arguments. But, you know, many of the things that people were worried about could be solved if they would just complete the advanced directives. Living will, medical power of attorney. When you get down to what people care about, dying, we can't do anything about, but it's the run up to it. It's fear of, you know, pain, isolation, and dependency. And all those can be reasonably well managed. So isolation, dependency, and pain, isolation, and dependency, those all can be really well managed. So if you do that, you can, you know, have a better death. And all those tools are there. And the ironic thing in a culture that values individual freedom and autonomy is they're all available and free, essentially covered. Hospice is covered by Medicare. Advanced directives of many sources. I like mydirectives.com, but there are many sources are free. And, you know, we just don't do it because of the taboo that Chris referred to. So I think we all, when I give talks, I would say we also have a job. Everybody's deputized to be the person to bring this up, knowing that people are going to, you know, scatter, and sometimes they'll run the other direction, or they'll say, gee, I'll think about it, and some will respond. But over time, attitudes change about things. This is, we're on the curve, we're on the cusp of changing.
Dan. Yeah, Dan, thank you so much for that. Who else who else has a question? It is 1:40. We have 20 minutes. If no one has a question, I will make a point. But anybody have a question?
Ms. Mary Jo, maybe what I will add to what Dan said is that medical directive forms are often very cut and dried, and they don't give you a lot of nuance to suggest things. And so I encourage people to, when you're having the conversation and when you're thinking through what you want to have happen, make sure that it's fully expressed in more than just a do not resuscitate order or something like that. You know, get into as many details as you want, all the conditions, you know, that you want.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah, I mean, you and Dan are making, let me just summarize what you and Dan have, key points you and Dan have made. Dan made the point about how important it is to fill out an advance directive. That is so true. But Mary Jo, you are making the additional point that that is really just a starting point, and that it should, once you've done that, then you need to talk with your loved ones on a fairly ongoing basis so that they know, because your advance directive is not going to cover every eventuality, because there are just too many to cover. And that's the point you're making, Mary Jo, the better your agent, your healthcare agent knows what you feel, knows what your values are, then the better job they can do of representing you when you are not able to talk for yourself. All right, Mary Jo, did I interrupt you? Did you anything else you want to add?
Thank you.
No, thank you both, and Dan. Okay, if anybody else doesn't have a question, I got something to say myself. But anybody have a question? Just wave to me, please. Oh yes, Catherine, please, Catherine.
Yeah, I asked this in the chat too, but I guess I was just wondering what your tips are, what you usually do to vet speakers to make sure they're not going to be too salesy, right? Because there are speakers with a lot of great information, and there are ones who are mostly just plugging their business, and it's like, you know.
Yeah. No, it's a problem. It's a potential problem. And what I do, Catherine, is that I interview them before. If I don't know them, often I know them, you know, like I know Dan, you know, but if I don't know them, I just know of, you know, then I will spend time on the phone interviewing them and making sure they're going to not be too salesy. Okay, can someone please mute?
Somebody, sounds like a male voice is on the phone.
Yeah, just mute yourselves, please. So Catherine, the key is just to interview them and talk to them and just be very open and say, you know, you know, this isn't an opportunity to sell your business. I mean, you know, we just want to, you know, I mean, you'd have to be open about that. And it's a very good point, because you don't want people coming in making sales pitches. You want people coming in and sharing science-based, evidence-based information. Yeah. Thank you. Kathy, did I answer your question? Yeah, great. Anybody else have a question? So I don't see a hand. So let me just, we've got about 15 minutes left. And I just want to say one thing we did when the pandemic hit. We went to Zoom, like all of us, we went to Zoom calls, and this turned out to be actually a very special time, because instead of having outside speakers, I decided to pose deep questions to the group, so we would get to know each other better. So some of these questions, for example, were what are the most important lessons? By the way, all this is in the background paper. What are the most important lessons you learned from your parents or grandparents? Another was, what are some intriguing aspects of your family history? Another was, what brings you joy? So I asked these questions week after week or month after month, and people would think about it. Then I would write to everybody a week before and an individual letter and repeat the question and ask them to answer it in writing before the meeting, which usually about 20 or 30 people did. And actually they loved it. They thought, oh my God, Chris is making me work. But on the other hand, they were producing something that they could share with their grandchildren and siblings and so on. So, and other questions were, what are the best ways to age successfully? Another was, what advice would you give the next generation about dealing with old age? Another was, what are the silver linings for older people in the pandemic? Another one was, what are some of your most unusual life experiences? What are some of your most, what are your favorite holiday traditions? Another question was, when do you feel most alive? And another was, what are your most treasured memories? So people would write answers. The reason I got people to write answers, not just come to the meeting and talk about it, was it made the meetings much more fruitful, because people had planned and prepared and thought about it, and they didn't become verbose and garrulous and loquacious and waste people's time. They stayed on topic. And then afterwards, I would write all these up into usually a 10 or 12 page document that I would send to everybody in the village. It was a wonderful way of really getting to deeply know other members of the village. So that was I just wanted to stress how useful and that was. And the key to that, of course, is asking good questions. Layla, I'll come to you in just one second. So anyway, I've written that up in the background paper. So if you want to read more about it, so let me pause there. And is it Lala? Lala, you have a question? Please go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me? I'm in a public place, so there's a little bit of background noise.
I'm going to listen very carefully. It's a bit foggy. Your voice is a bit muzzy.
Okay. My question is, through these conversations that you've had, have you found that the way I think of it is having conversations about how to add life to your years rather than just years to your life, and how this process supports that, or any recommendations that you have to take this conversation into adding life to your years?
Yes, that is such a great question. And that's one reason I made the name back in 5 years ago when I started this group. I called it Aging, Dying, and Death, because how we die is so influenced by how we live. And the old adage, the old maxim, as you all know, is the way if you want to die well, then live well. So yes, in our meetings, Lala, we have talks about aging well, aging successfully. I give a talked to many villagers about how to age well, and that's very important. So it's not all about dying and death. It's about aging well, with the idea to, as you put it, to extract as much life out of our years, and not just adding years to our life. I'm with you on that. Am I answering your question, Leila? Great, it's a good question. Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you talk about life, when you talk about death and dying, that's really, you're talking about living, and that's a very important point to make. Thank you. Anybody else? It's 1:48. Anybody else have a question or a comment? Just wave to me, or let me now quickly look at the chat room to make sure we covered all those questions. Oh, lots of wonderful comments. Thank you to all of you. Let me just quickly, oh my gosh. Let me just quickly, oh my gosh, no, I've messed up. Oh, okay. Did I do that? Okay.
I did that accidentally. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem at all. Let me just very quickly make sure I've answered all these questions in the chat room. Okay, so okay, background papers. Okay, Mary Jo will send out the background papers. She introduced herself. Cheryl, I found the Zoom link. Oh, Mary, how is different from Death Cafe? There isn't a lot of difference. Death cafes are very good. I recommend them. I've been to several. I've endorsed them. You can Google death cafes to learn more about them. There's on Wikipedia. There's a good description of them. And death cafes, you meet. Often people don't know each other, and you talk about death and dying. There's usually no agenda. It's a chance. It's not therapy or anything like that. It's just a chance for people to talk about their thoughts about death and dying. They're very good. I encourage you to attend one. The difference is, I think, with ours, there is an agenda. It's very intentional. Our meetings are very intentional, whereas Death Cafe, it tends to be more broad and softer. Okay, so I hope I've answered that question. Mary Jo gave my email address. Thank you. Margaret Newman says, are you familiar with Iona Senior Services Aging Solo Program? No, sounds similar. No expert. Okay, it's now available. Okay, so you can all read this. It's now available. Okay, this is very good. Okay, goal. Oh, that's excellent. Goal is to create an end of life plan. Gosh, I endorse that. Our village has a continuation. Oh, that's very interesting, Margaret. Thank you very much. I encourage everyone to look at Margaret's note. It went in at 1:20. Yeah, so Margaret, if you got my email, I would love to know more about that. Please send me an email about that. Okay, Judith Levith, Burning Tree Village will be starting this program in the fall. Oh, that's wonderful. Judith Levy says Burning Tree Village will be starting this program in the fall. And I meant Iona's Aging Solo. That's great. I'm with you. That's great, Judith. Well done. And then Dan gave his email. Mary, please, one question. Oh, one question per person. Okay. Lisa Friedman introduced herself. That's great. Catherine, oh yes, I answered that question from Catherine. Kate McGrail. Oh, Kate, I know your name. Where's Kate? Wave it to me, Kate. Where are you? Kate, I'm looking at you.
I'm probably at the end because I just.
Oh yes, Kate, I see you now. Kate McGraw. Kate, I know your name well. I know
I'm good.
You've got a great reputation. Oh, could people please mute themselves? I'm hearing somebody. Kate.
Oh, no.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh.
Sorry, Kate, I was saying that I know your name well. You are renowned, the work you do at Suburban Hospital. And thank you so much for being here today. You say, hi, Chris, thank you for your passion and commitment to this essential issue. I will have to jump off at 1:30, but please feel free to reach out to chat about more ways Suburban Hospital can support you. I'd love that. Regional Others would be interested. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Kate, I will get in touch with you. Thank you so much for that generous offer. And I'd love to take you up on that. Thank you, Kate.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And let me see, Lisa Freeman again and Mary Jo. On Mary Jo had it on Wave's website. Oh, yes, on Wave's website, you can find many materials about end of life from Compassion and Choices. Yeah, Compassion and Choices is an excellent group. I support them. They educate and advocate for quality end of life. They support medical aid in dying. They made presentations, led discussions. Oh, yeah, MAID is excellent. I mean, excuse me, Compassion, I think they're great. So thank you, Mary Jo, for that. Elizabeth Pruitt on page 4 of the excellent paper. I think she's referring to my background paper. Yes, she is. It mentions the Final Exit Network. Yeah, Final Exit Network. It's a good organization. They help people die peacefully and legally. You can go to them. Oh, Mary Jo, I see you have your hand up. I'll come to you in 1 second. You can go, just Google Final Exit Network. They're a very good group. They help people die who are suffering physically or existentially and want to bring their lives to a peaceful and dignified end. They have exit guides who will help you. They're controversial, of course. Not everybody, many people think they are not, they're not a good group because they help people die, and people shouldn't be helped to die because God tells you when you should die, and that's God's decision, not a human decision. So these debates are ongoing, but I recommend them and support them. So Elizabeth Pruitt, I hope I've answered your question. And then Cheryl, I highly recommend, if you're updating your will, to designate an executor. A dead friend of mine died in October and did not do this. Her fiance is stuck waiting for approval to act to liquidate. Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, please do that. You please designate an executor. Thank you, Cheryl, for that. Dan, one can put many things into your advanced. This is Dan Morhaime again. Yes, you can put me in your advanced. Mine, for example, Dan says, he's talking about advanced directives, asked that I be taken outside as much as possible in the fresh air. Give me vodkas and medical cannabis. 1 bite of chocolate per day. I hope, Dan, that's dark chocolate, and so on. And you can update your medical wishes as well. IDs are available from many sources, including faith-specific ones. Yeah, Dan, thank you so much for that point. Yeah, you can put anything you want in an advanced directive. Dan's exactly right. And how you want to be treated, like your feet massaged, whatever. Janet Hawley, we also have a health advocate who can represent us in case we are comatose to ensure our health choices will be followed. How interesting. We also have a health advocate. Very good. Okay, yeah. We and honestly, when you're in hospital, you need an advocate. Otherwise, you're at the mercy of sometimes imperialistic and haughty and hubristic doctors who they have their own interest in mind and not your own interest, not your interest in mind. Thank you, Janet, for that. Catherine, did the attendance drop off once you were in Zoom? No, Catherine. The attendance, I think, went up. But again, don't forget, I work very hard to bring people into these meetings. I write to them, call them. I really work hard at it. It doesn't happen by itself. No, the attendance of Zoom meetings was very, very good. Janet Hawley, thank you for excellent paper on this and this presentation. Personally, I'm currently interested in decluttering. As all of us should be, Janet, we need to declutter and not to give that onerous burden to our children to declutter our crap. So yes, everybody, please declutter, death clean, because it's an act of generosity and thoughtfulness to your heirs. Dan says we have to be ambassadors for these issues and not be afraid to bring up others as we are all mortal. Yeah, that's a good point. Margaret Newman, if anyone has a question about Iona's aging solo, please email me at director.fhnn@outlook.com or call me at 301-351-4885. Can find program on Iona, that's IONA Senior Services website, available on a sliding scale. Kathleen Cozen, when people submitted their responses in advance, how do they get read during the meeting? They read them, Kathleen. They read them, or they summarized them. And did each person still read them? Yes, they read them. Sometimes I had to say, can you shorten that up? When they'd written 2 pages, I had to say, can you shorten that up? Because we only give, the meetings only are an hour from 4 to 5 on Sundays. So I sometimes people have to summarize them. Susan Petty, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. Thank you. Kathleen Cozen, thanks for answering my question and for your time. Danny Wilson, remember to review add direct period. Wait, Danny, what's that mean? Remember to review. Sorry, I'm with you. Remember to review advanced directive period. Yes, review it at least once a year as you get older more often, because your views change. There are times had a very good answer by Dr. Lamar the other day about how people change their views. So you can always, as Dan said, you can change your views all the time. You can rewrite, revise your advanced directive as often as you want. Bob says, can Dan say from his experience what makes one advanced directive better than another? Dan, it is 1:58, so I'm going to give you 35 seconds. Dan, go.
Okay, the most important thing is you complete one, anyone, but my personal favorite is mydirectives.com. I'll put that in the chat. I just think it's the easiest. It walks you through it. It updates it. You can print out a form, and it's the one form that's been approved by the state of Maryland about 5-6 years ago to transmit. And if you do 5 wishes or some other, you can upload it into mydirectives.com.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dan.
That's it. I'll put that in there.
No, thank you, Dan. That's a great answer. And Mary Jo has a question, and then Dick has a question. Mary Jo, please go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if Dick has, is that Dick Jung? Because I was told that someone named Dick Jung had been waving his hand for a while, but I couldn't find him. So if there's someone else who is waving a hand and wants to.
I didn't know. Dick has his hand up.
Yes.
So,
3 quick comments. One, a lot's been put on Chris about what he does, and I just want to say, as someone who's been participating in this over the last couple of years, and I aim to say everybody, but particularly the executive directors, Chris's sessions, I'm only an edit one, but I don't think I am, is my main reason for being part of the association. That's number one. On the other hand, number two, those of you who are worried about whether you can get this right, Chris does not sometimes get it right. We've had a speaker I thought was going to be great on how to do a less expensive funeral, and I'm guessing a substitute showed up, and so you don't have to get it right, but it was still a very, very valuable session. And number 3, Dan, I really want to thank you for being our representative. I do think that these groups could give you some great insight into possible legislative topics. One that came up about cheaper dying is how Maryland is a little bit behind the 8 ball when it comes to doing cremations that are more earth friendly. So I would just want to thank Chris and to let you all know that I think it's going to be worthwhile for you to set these up in your groups.
Dick, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, we are at 2 o'clock, Chris. And
So we're gonna. So Mary Jo, back to you to finish the meeting.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, I think everyone can see that this has been a very successful conversation, and we can see why Chris's sessions have been so successful, because he is personally, he is personal glue, putting together and holding together communities. What I wanted to say is I've directed you to the Compassion and Choices materials that we have on our website. We will be posting a video of this session together with Chris's background paper. And we will be having within the next couple of months, I hope, a new website with a resources section. And there will be a section on end-of-life resources. So I would ask any of you, including Dan, and others who have materials that or suggestions that you think should be added to this resource list, to please send them to me personally, and I will make sure that we post them on our website under resources on this topic. So again, thank you, Chris. Outstanding session.
My honor.
We're very appreciative, and we look forward to perhaps, in a future life belonging to BMAV and joining one of your sessions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And my last comment would be on July 18th, we will be having our quarterly meeting, which will be by Zoom. And the plenary will include some presentations by the villages that won awards for outstanding programs or services, plus lengthy discussions with professionals on liability issues and insurance privileges. So please be sure and be on our website, and you'll see registration information coming out shortly. Thank you all. And
Thanks,
go out and
everybody.
enjoy
Thanks
the
for
sunshine.
coming.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.
Hmm.